off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
Oh, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm going to have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, one and all. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we sit at the total of 100 and Thatcher Demko of subscribers, as I think we all know who Thatcher Demko was. And as well as now I'm getting an echo. Hang on. And also you can subscribe to the audio as that. And of course, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to check that out as well, as we have some history going on here. Hello. First, we say hello to Sean.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. Enjoying a nice sunny Vancouver weather day. It is the 29th consecutive day in British Columbia without rain. We are expecting rain on Friday, like a touch, like maybe 3 drops. So, which, you know, the sun is great. I enjoy the sun, but the fires out in BC right now, they could use a little bit of rain. But especially in my former little locale of Kamloops, which is all smoke. But yes, how are things over there?
Good. I actually have a guest here with me staying with Heidi and I for the next few days, and it's Tyler.
Hello, guys.
Well,
yes.
look at that. You have. I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. Yes, talk about sacrifice. This man travels from. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with some technical issues here. Just give me a quick second here. Okay. Anyway, I'm closing that. So Tyler traveled all the way from British Columbia to Alberta to join the podcast.
That's right.
It is sacrifice.
It's obligatory once a year that we get together here. So actually, Sean's he's the box is there, but he's just like there. So it's good to be here. I was spent the last few days in the Kamloops little Shuswap area, just holidaying, playing golf, catching up with friends, and yes, Kevin, dealing with smoke in that Thompson-Nicola region there in BC, and evidently very smoky here as well. Not really any different. So, we hope for the best in terms of wildfires and it doesn't get worse.
Yeah, for sure. It is something there for sure. Hang on 1 minute here. I am going to deal with that. Okay.
How are you getting an echo anyways?
Why am I? Oh,
yeah.
I'm trying to share this from my Facebook, and I'm having there. Okay. Share. I'm having a heck of a time doing it. So, I don't know why it's not coming up on my thing here for some reason or another. It's not coming up on my Facebook. So anyway, we expect Devin will come on. We've got already Sergeant Pickles is here saying, what's up, everyone. And we've got a lot of news. There's a lot so just let's update everyone just also with the schedule as well. I am flying down to Calgary on Friday. I will be there for our hockey housecast. So Sean will have more friends at his house than Tyler. He will have Devin and Chris and me in there as well. So that will be fun for Sean as that happens. We'll be all together. That will be the day that we reveal from our expansion list, which you can go on YouTube. I've edited. I have about 10 teams, I think, left to edit. 10 or 11 teams left to edit. I've edited every single one of them to get out. But if you want to listen to the whole 3-hour version all at once, you can do that as well. But go onto our YouTube page or Facebook page, podcast. We've got all that up as well.
And Kevin, I just want to say thank you so much for that. That is a lot of work, and you've been diligently working your way through all 30 protection lists and making sure that you're getting them out there for everyone to watch and review.
Yeah, I hope to have it all done by tomorrow, but I may have to get a couple done by Friday. But the list is out. The expansion list is out Saturday. I think
they're going to reveal it to the public on Sunday. The deadline to get it into the league is Saturday. So yeah. So we're actually hoping when we do our recording, that the list is available for us to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the names that will be on, looks like reportedly on the list, according to Renee Lavoie, is Shea Weber.
Yes.
And of course, according to Renee Lavoie, Shea Weber is expected to be out for most of next year, if not all of next year, with what he worded a multitude of injuries, which is a huge shake now. And I guess first of all, I think the first thing that I want to start with Shea Weber is, and we'll get into this a little bit later with a trade that I think is being bashed. This guy is a warrior. That is the entire definition of this hockey warrior, like Travis Hamonic with no teeth. This guy has been to play with those injuries in the Stanley Cup final the way that he did. That is, first of all, I think that's huge kudos and incredible in and of itself. And what a huge loss that the Montreal Canadiens will be dealing with, that they're going to have to rectify in some way, shape, or form. But Shea Weber is a warrior. I think we need to start with that factor of there.
Well, that's one good reason why he's the captain of the team, right? I mean, he's going to be, he's showing everybody he's that tough at that age and playing the position that he plays. And, so I think it now makes a lot of sense. It was noted by a lot of people that the team kind of went to console him specifically after the series was over and, the finality of it was setting in. Maybe it's because they all knew kind of what he was playing through and the effort that he put in, and for them to come up short for him, that's why you saw the reaction that you did.
Yeah, and I believe this was sort of similar or the same injury that he's been working through for the last 2 to 3 years. I think Weber missed a lot of the 2019-2020 season because of an ankle or a lower leg injury, and that's, I believe, what is the what's flared up again here that might keep him out again for another season. So, I think it is going to be. He is a warrior. He worked his way through it in a very tough season, and then let alone the grind of a playoff run. And he deserves a lot of credit for what he was willing to do, willing to put himself through. And I think it's a very testament as to why he is the captain, just like Tyler said. I think it is very much a testament to why he was chosen as captain for the Montreal Canadiens.
Now, the other side of this is, and I want to, with this expansion list, Sean, you went 4-4. Now with Weber out, now that you have this information, how are you still this? How does this change your expansion plans?
Well, if Weber is indeed has an injury, there's no reason to protect him, because even if Seattle decides to take him, he's not. It doesn't look like he's going to play at least for a good chunk of next season. So I think it now, instead of going with the 8 skaters and protecting 4 defensemen, I think you will see Montreal switch to the 7-3 setup, and which will, unfortunately for Seattle, take away a really good player that they could have been able to get potentially in Jake Evans, as well as a couple others potential sort of UFAs they could negotiate with, or an RFA they could negotiate with to fill out that roster with Philip Deneau and Arturi Lehkonen. But I definitely see them doing a 7-3 split on their protection list now that it's unfortunate that Shea Weber is injured.
Tyler, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, maybe that's kind of a problem for the Habs that has solved itself here a little bit. Because, as we talked about there when we last all got together about the expansion list, Montreal was going to be leaving several really good forwards available for picking there if they went with the 4-4 arrangement.
Sergeant Pickles says they all said the list will be released on the 18th. Yeah. So we'll be having that list there. He also says, I expect them to expose Weber anyways to protect Sherratt. Kraken don't touch that contract even if he was healthy.
That's a good point. Yep.
Now I guess this is the next step for the Habs. And we so now you've got the Seth Jones situation, you've got the Dougie Hamilton situation. We'll get from the Wild's perspective, specifically the Ryan Suter part of this. But they're obviously got to be in a market for a defenseman. There's no question you don't necessarily have that replacement for Shea Weber there. If you were advising Montreal, if Joel was sitting here with us, joining us, where do we think they should go?
If they want to make a big splash, I think the answer is Dougie Hamilton. I don't think it's a Ryan Suter. On the left side, they do have Joel Edmondson and Ben Sherratt, let alone Alexander Romanov coming up as well, who can play both sides. But if they do want to take a big splash, make a big splash, I think that Dougie Hamilton would be the ideal situation for them. But I think it's going to be tough. They are pretty locked down cap wise for the next while. But I think a lot of it comes down to how long term this injury from Shea Weber is, because Hamilton's going to want a long term deal. Are you willing to give up the assets to get a Seth Jones? So I think it's and I don't know if Ryan Suter would be willing to go north of the border at this point. I think he's probably going to be looking at sort of more potential contenders in down south of the border, more than say a Montreal. But it's going to be tough for them to fill. Those are big skates to fill with Shea Weber, though. So they're going to have to make a big move if they do want to find a way to replace him. But again, I think it all comes down to how long term they think it is.
What we typically see with players that get bought out is that they end up re-signing with another team for a very low value contract. So, Suter's going to have his choices as to where to go. If he thinks that Montreal's a cup contender, I suppose that's a possibility. But I'm with Sean, and Elliot Friedman's talked about this as well on 31 Thoughts. I think he doesn't have the sense that Suter would want to play for a Canadian team, and I have a hard time seeing that as well, just with all the microscope and everything. If Suter's going to get a buyout here and get a fresh start, I think he's going to want to go to an American market that's already a pretty strong team, and he can add to it.
I have a couple of other names I'd like to throw. Can I throw in here? What about Adam Larson?
Yeah, good question there. I think the Oilers and Larson probably want to still try and make a deal. I don't know where they're at with still trying to save face on the Taylor Hall deal. I mean, there's people still giving them a hard time about the 1-for-1 trade with Taylor Hall, and then if he just leaves in free agency, that means they've been left with nothing out of that trade. And Larson's been a part of their leadership group. So we'll see on that. But this Duncan Keith acquisition kind of raises some questions now for a bunch of defensemen there.
Yeah, I believe the talk is that one of the reasons they went forward with the Duncan Keith trade as it was and didn't try and get more for sort of bargain more is that they aren't feeling comfortable in having Adam Larsson returning. So he could be available. I'm not sure how. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be questioning the fit a little bit, but I'd have to dig into that a little bit more. I haven't really thought of that. Shea Weber brings a lot more of a every situation set up for them, but then you also have Alexander Romanov. You could bring back Eric Gustafsson as well to fill this more as a group, which I think is probably the best bet. So maybe Adam Larsson it would be an option for them if they don't get one of the big whales of the UFA this year.
One more. What about Eric Chernak?
I think Tampa's going to do whatever they can to keep him. I think they've got depth up front, better than they have depth on the blue line. So I think what we're going to see out of Tampa this summer is they're going to lose another forward, another big money forward, maybe even two, to make it work for them going into next season. And it's going to be all to be able to keep that blue line together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Chernak would be he's not, I'm not saying he's Shea Weber, but that is a guy that you would love to have. And that if there is a replacement, that was one of the first guys I thought of as Eric Chernak would be a good fit. But you're right. I'm just going to toss that.
Like I said, I think I threw everyone for a loop when I said that I could definitely see Tampa going an 8 skater route in the expansion draft and only protecting 4 forwards, only because that would probably have them losing a Yanni Gourde. But I think they want to. If I was them, I'd want to keep that. I'd want to keep that defense together, and doing that allows them to do that. And maybe you're basically keeping that same decor together, because if you're Seattle, you've got the potential of a Yanni Gourde or a Tyler Johnson or even an Andre Palat. You're taking one of those as opposed to a Jan Ruda or one of the other defensemen that would be left unprotected by Tampa. So I'm standing by that hot take that I put out there and saying that I watch for Tampa to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting, even just kind of going through that list. Well, I'll save my comment on that first for Sunday when we go through the list. But it's been an interesting reflective piece. The other side of that was here is to clear some fast days. Do you see Montreal trying to make a deal for Seattle to take Drouin? I think that Seattle will have some other options in terms of skill that they can take, that I don't think that they may not need to make a deal to take Drouin.
So this is the sweetener talk now? Is it where we
sweetener? I think we're trying to get a sweetener into.
I mean, Montreal should definitely try to do something there, but hard to imagine Seattle wanted to bring in Drouin the way it's gone from in the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I just don't know where Drouin is at, because he left for personal reasons, I believe. So I don't know where things are at and where he's at. So I think that is something that you have to be in the know and know exactly what was the reasoning of how things went down this season with him.
Yeah.
before you even make that decision. And whenever I hear that, I don't want to touch that because I feel like there's a lot of personal stuff that may be maybe there, and I think that should stay personal. That should stay private. And if he's available and willing to play and 100% there physically and mentally, I don't think there even needs to be a deal there. I think they could. That would be a very shrewd pickup by Ron Francis and the Kraken. But again, it just all comes down to knowing what that whole situation is.
Yeah, Tyler, did you have any? I don't know. Yeah, I can't say that I know enough about that situation to say. I mean, I would suspect that he's left unprotected, but I don't know if I think that people are trying to think that Seattle is just going to is going to accept all these deals and to take the worst of the worst from the teams, and I just think that Seattle is going to be a lot more shrewder than that. I think GMs are going to be shrewder in the way that they dealt with Vegas than they did with Seattle, but Seattle's also going to be shrewd here as well, and I think that they have an identity that they're trying to establish. So we'll see there. There is some options in Montreal even at a 7-3 that are not terrible anyway. So we'll see, including at goaltender as well. If Jake Allen could be an option, but anything else on this specific thing that we need to talk about?
I just seen another comment from Sergeant Pickles about. His idea for expansion, Johnson, McDonough, Foot in the first. I don't know what the current. I know there's a lot of talk that the current price is very, very steep. This seems too steep for me. I think if I'm Brisebois, why would you give up two bona fide top 4, top 9 forward players, a good young player, and a first? What are they getting back in that just so they can keep Yanni Gourde? I think you just bite the bullet and take whoever. You just let them take whoever they want out of that. But that's also why I think they go 4-4 because you may lose Yanni Gourde, but I think the strength, one of the biggest strengths of Tampa is that blue line, and Eric Trinak's turned out to be someone who is a big part of that strength. So. And as is McDonough. So I think if Tampa was a lot more of a run and gun team like they used to be, I think that might have been something that they'd be interested in. But now I think they are a lot more cognizant and very worried about making sure that they keep that defensive minded style that has been so successful for them, especially this season, and a little bit less last season, but still, it was still there.
Things that people got to remember here is that the rules around who you must expose and who you can protect and all that is the same as the Vegas expansion. Obviously, most people, ourselves included, were surprised at how good a team Vegas ended up with. So I'm sure general managers will put a little more thought into who's on their list or not on their list. But at the end of the day, they're only going to lose one player. So for Tampa, at some point, you're going to have to say, hey, we got a deep team. We just won the Cup the last couple of years. It just kind of a product of our own success, and we're going to lose a good player. There's just nothing that can be done about it.
Yeah, and Sergeant Pickles coming in there again. Cap reasons as to why, but I think that they'll find a way to make another deal without having to, while still being able to bring in something else. You even look at the Duncan Keith trade. It's not like they gave Chicago gave Duncan Keith out for nothing.
Yeah,
McDonough and Tyler Johnson are still very, very useful players. They may be Johnson's particularly maybe a very overpaid for what he brings, but they're still very useful, and you can still find a way to get some value out of that as opposed to just a big dump, as well as a young defenseman who I think they are going to hope that can step up and start becoming part of the future of that blue line, let alone another first. They've given up. They've gotten the first in the trade, but Tampa's also traded away 3 firsts in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think they understand that this team can't stay together, and I think you have to start looking at the draft to help supplement that down the road as well.
Yeah, I think that Tampa Bay is going to want to start accumulating. I agree with you. I think Tampa Bay is going to want to start accumulating picks, not giving them away. So they're in a very interesting spot overall. There, I'm really intrigued what happened there, and what Julian Breezeball and what that team does. But let's move on to Edmonton, and the Canuck fans and Flames fans melded together in unity and commonality,
And pettiness.
and pettiness and laughter at Ken Holland as the Oilers acquired 38-year-old Duncan Keith for Caleb Jones, brother of Sept, and a 3rd-round pick, which could become a second if the Edmonton Oilers get to the Stanley Cup final. And the Oilers also got another minor league player in this trade as well. Maybe I want to hear from you guys first before I give my comments. We'll start with Tyler on this. What were your thoughts on this trade? And then we'll hear from Sean. And then,
Yeah, it's one of those moves where a team's in we gotta win now mode, and they're trying to do something to shake up the mix. Look, it's a risky move. I know it's been panned, critically. People don't think it's a good deal. They gave up too much, whatever. But do the Oilers really want to come back with status quo and be soft in the playoffs and be out early like happened this year? I mean, they have to do something. And Duncan Keith's a guy with a Stanley Cup pedigree, and he's tough and mean, and he should theoretically add at least some leadership to that group. And I think that's needed. But at the same time, I mean, boy, when you're the team that really wants the deal more, this is the kind of outcome that you get, right? Like, people can sit here and say, how did they give up that much for Duncan Keith? Well, if you're Chicago, you say, well, we're not in that big a rush to make a deal. Yeah, if you want to make a deal for Duncan Keith, that's fine, but we need something here, right? Like, I think I saw Dustin Nielsen, I think it's TSN Radio, saying that the Hawks had no leverage. What do you mean? Like, they don't have to make the deal. They have 3 Stanley Cups in the last whatever number of years to rest on their laurels and patience with the fans. There's no like big pressure to get rid of, maybe a future Hall of Famer, a Conn Smythe Trophy winner, a Norris Trophy winner, if I'm not mistaken. Where's this idea that Chicago's trying to get rid of this guy, right? So that's why I think he ended up getting this deal that seems a little bit lopsided. Boy, the Oilers need immediate results for this. It's going to look really ugly. But as far as Canuck fan amusement, I mean, for me, it's just, the honeymoon's over with Ken Holland. The Edmonton fans and media have officially turned on him.
okay, I want to ask you a question, Tyler. Did the Oilers need to make this trade now?
Well, I think they had to do something about their defense. Yeah. They're probably going to protect Ethan Bear, I'm guessing, from the Seattle expansion. But he and I can't remember who his defense partner was in Game 4. If you've got it, Sean, help me out. But they didn't even see the ice for much of the third period and the 3 overtimes there against Winnipeg in Game 4. And then finally, when Dave Tippett had to put them out there, that was when the winning goal was scored. So it was a clear illustration that the coach doesn't have a defense that's deep enough to keep up in the playoffs, and they think that Duncan Keith's going to improve it.
It's not as bad a trade as people are making it out to be. Adding Duncan Keith is going to be big for players like Ethan Bear, a Darnell Nurse, Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg. He's been fantastic for them. You talk with players like Ryan Kessler about the the effect that Matt Sundin had on his career. Not to mention an underrated thing that I don't think many people know is it's a cap quirk with the stupid cap cap reclamation or whatever they're called, cap recapture. If Duncan Keith is crap and decides to walk away from the last year of his contract, because he's only owed $1.5 million next year, the Oilers actually gain an extra $3.4 million in cap hit on top of the 5.5 cap hit that they would lose because he retired. Like it's ridiculous. It's stupid. It shows yet another reason why the cap recapture system is just absolutely dumb and petty, done by Brian Burke and Gary Bettman, because it makes absolutely no sense. But if Duncan Keith goes in and says, like, I'm done, I've made enough money after this season, I don't feel like I can add anything more next season, they actually gain an extra $3.4 million towards the cap than another team would.
Yeah, and for Keith, if it's true as it's reported that he wants to play in Edmonton because of the proximity to Penticton where his family is, then, I mean, it's just too tempting for them to not try and make a deal right there. I mean, how often do we hear free agents really say, I want to play in Edmonton? You know, and a guy with his track record and name power and all that. And like I said earlier, I firmly believe that the organization feels that more leadership is needed. And so those are the kinds of things he brings, even if though clearly at his age, he's not what he used to be. Just going back earlier at the defense partner with Ethan Bear was Slater Cuckoo. And those two hardly saw the ice when they were up against it there in Game 4 against Winnipeg. And, you know, as I said before, their defense was not deep enough.
Yeah, to me, I'm with Sean. I don't think that this is one of those situations where everybody feels like they are an expert because, you know, you have to win the deal, everyone. You got to win the deal. And there's no reason, for the love of God, that, you know, with the leverage that you only had 4 other teams possibly in this in Western Canada, which would have been Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Seattle, that you couldn't have asked the Chicago Blackhawks to hold on to some cap money. I don't even think that is a legitimate argument. There were no hockey insider that I heard said that was even a remote possibility that would have happened. Like, nobody with the inside knowledge that would have known that said, yeah, Holland missed out on that at all. Actually, everyone
I heard Friedman say that. I think he said that he thinks that it's a bit of a miss on that, but I don't think it's that big of a miss. I think
no.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than Friedman, who I do respect, don't get me wrong, but most others that I heard said that I don't think that was a possibility. Caleb Jones, brother of Seth, wasn't even, you know, in that playoff with that weak depth with Darnell Nurse. He played 40 minutes in Game 4, right? Caleb Jones was a healthy scratch.
I know that's what's funny about people losing their minds over what they had to give up in this deal. Like, I mean, Caleb Jones is what? Like, no disrespect. Like, it's not like they're giving up Darnell Nurse plus a draft pick.
Like, if you were giving up a higher level prospect, then I can see the argument more that you could have had them hold some cap space. But this is Duncan Keith played 23 minutes a night last year with the Chicago Blackhawks. You can make all the arguments in the world, and you can draw, like, I could draw a graph. I'll draw a graph here right now. I'll draw a graph. He did some of this.
It's always good when the props come out.
Yeah, like this. Okay, this is the graph. Okay, he played a little bit like this, and then he went and did this, and then this, and then this. Can I tweet this out? Is this one?
Yeah, that's better than my artwork.
Yeah. So, but you know what? He also didn't have a Jonathan Toews and a Kirby Doc in front of him last year that he could play with. And this year, he's got a Connor McDavid and a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's also got a Darnell Nurse in front of him. And you, again, I know he's 38 years old. I get it. I totally get it. He's old. But that guy, Duncan Keith, is a warrior. Duncan Keith is a guy. He's an absolute prick. And remember what he did with Henrik Sedin?
It was Daniel, but yeah, we remember.
Right?
Yeah.
He is not. I think what people are missing is what Wayne Gretzky said. There's 3 levels of play. There's 3 types of games in the NHL. There's regular season. The Oilers have figured that out.
Yes.
There's the playoffs. The Oilers have not figured it out. And I think that you bring in a Duncan Keith because, yes, he's 38, but there's a certain level of maturity that he brings with this team that they are sorely lacking.
Yeah.
And it's it is so hard to grab that. And you can make the argument, well, you're paying $5.5 million for bringing this in. You're not going to be able to get a free agent. They're just not going to come to Edmonton. They're not coming
Not cheaply. Not any cheaper than that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's funny, we see this with the Canucks fan base too. Like, people are all over Tyler Myers all the time. In the past, I was one of the guys that was all over Alex Edler all the time. It is somewhat fashionable to crap on defensemen. I guess that's just not as glamorous a position, and so when you see a deal like this, it's just harder for the average fan to sort of see the tangible benefits there. But when you don't have reliable, experienced, poised defense, it really shows its ugly head at critical moments, and that's what happened in the playoffs last year. I mean, the other thing too is, where are we? We're defending the Oilers organization. Is there the full moon out here in Caltown tonight, or what's going on?
The thing with defense is that their mistakes are highlighted big time. Every time they get walked, every time they make a mistake, they make a bad pinch, it's highlighted because it either creates a scoring chance or a goal. And they could be really good for 90 to 95% of the time, but people focus in on the bad.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too. I still don't feel comfortable with the way that these public analytics evaluate defensemen and defensive play.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never felt it just doesn't feel like it does a good enough job, because I think defense is a lot more team based more than anything else, and the game is so fast that even if you're the best skating defenseman, you're going to get walked at least 10-15% of the time.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is, and you have to deal with the good and the bad, and I think you have to find a way to look at everything in moderation, and figure out who can fit the best. And it's still a risk. It's still a very risky trade, because even if it doesn't work out and he still plays the 2 years, that's still 5.5 plus on your cap for the next 2 years. That could really hamper what you can do, what Ken Holland and the Oilers can do to fill up that roster, especially up front, because I felt that their defense was on the right track. They've got Evan Bouchard coming up. They've got Philip Broberg coming up. They've got Ethan Bear starting to step up and become a good player. William Lagesson, watch for him. I really think that they've got some pieces on the blue line that can, even learning from Duncan Keith, could really help. Go look at Calgary. I bet you the development of even Noah Hannafin this past year, and I think you'll see with Valimaki, Anderson, and Connor Mackey as well, with having such a good veteran presence in Chris Tanev. I think you might see that in Edmonton with Duncan Keith. But at 5.5, that's tough, because what else do the Oilers need? They need depth up front, and they need it bad. Like they do not have anything up front outside of the top two, really. Yeah, Nugent Hopkins is good and plays well, but he plays with one of them all the time.
At least it got him affordably.
Yeah, they need to find a way to make a third line that can actually be comfortable putting out, let alone a fourth line.
Yeah.
So that's really going to be the question on whether or not this was worth it, is if they can still find a way to build out that roster and that forward group going forwards.
Yeah, I'm not like, look, I'm not saying that this is the greatest deal of all time, but like I think some people are putting this in Peter Chiarelli category, and I just don't see it that bad.
No, it's not. It's not at the level of desperation like a number of the Chiarelli moves were towards the end of his tenure. No, it's not like that at all. I don't know. Again, like I said before, easy to crap on defensemen. Probably people just don't like Duncan Keith from playing against him over the years. And there's always this obsession with draft picks. Like, I get the angst over trading away first or second round draft picks, but third round draft picks, like, come on, it's not something to lose sleep over. Yeah, it is an asset. You can't just throw them around haphazardly like we've seen with, say, Toronto. But I mean, the whole sky is falling reaction is a bit much, I thought.
My other thing with this is just, and maybe it's because I'm in a certain age category that this hits me a bit more, but I'm really tired of starting to get really annoyed at the attacking the older athlete. Yeah, I think this is starting to become a bit bullshit. Tom Brady is 43 and still playing. Timo Solani played it into his 40s. Jaromir Jagr is still playing, by the way. There's a connection with Jaromir Jagr and the current Stanley Cup finalist. Mm-hmm. Wayne Gretzky probably could have played into his 40s. There are athletes that are able to play at a high level and are older, and it's just this whole mystification that you need young players to be successful. Of course you need young players to be successful, but you also need a little bit of maturity as well, and that's where I think a Duncan Keith, a Mark Giordano, Chris Tanev, those older players add that value to it. Now, it becomes a question for sure of how much you pay them and all of that. For sure, I totally agree with that argument, but like to just dunk on them because they're old, which is a lot of what this argument was, I think is bullshit. I think it's a complete bullshit argument.
We see it over and over in all sports that the teams with a lot of veterans are the ones that end up being the last ones standing. And for whatever reason, like a newer generation of fans just doesn't seem to want to listen to that.
Yeah.
I remember going through this, I think might have been partway through the season, and looking at the average age of the top of Stanley Cup winners and finalists. And it's not as young as I think a lot of people think it is. No. Yeah, you had a couple really young teams with Chicago and Pittsburgh, but the rest of them have all been sort of in that 25 plus. And even like you look even like Boston in 2011, they had Marchand, but they still had Char was still
Mark
Recchi. They had Tim Thomas was their starting goaltender. Don't forget that. Like it's you have to learn how to win when playing, especially in the NHL. I think there is a thing about that. I think people yell and scream too much about that, but I think it is a truth right now.
Let's go back to the 2009 Penguins just to name a few guys. Bill Guerin, 38 years old at the time. They had Sergei Gonchar, 34. They had Miroslav Shatan, 34 years old. Daryl Sador, 36 years old. So, while the leadership and the stars on that team were younger players, they were still, really important old OGs. We throw that term around here all the time. You need to have that.
I would just quickly going through, and I found an article from April 2018 talking about the median age of NHL teams being 27, And very rarely do you see here. Yeah, median age of NHL was 27 in that year, and only 3 of the 12 Cup teams had a younger average age of 27.
Yeah,
you need to find that right balance. And yes, in the cap world, things get hype. There's a hypercritical look at how you spend your cap, but if you get it right, most of the time it's not with young players, and you do need players on the LCs and young players outperforming their contract, but you still need to find the right vets, and you still need to find players who bring that experience. And I think that's something that I know something that Ken Holland definitely knows. Like, how many cups has he won as a GM? Yes, he's won it with Nick Lidstrom, arguably the best defenseman probably since Bobby Orr in the NHL. I think you can make that argument.
I'll say this, just on a side note. If someone said Nick Lidstrom was better than Bobby Orr, I would not yell at him.
I would.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go there either.
But that's besides the point.
I know, because Bobby Orr is considered the saint, but I think Lidstrom was awesome.
Oh, Lidstrom was amazing.
So smooth.
It really you can't knock. Like, if you're gonna knock him for that, he was also part of the team that drafted him.
Yep.
Like, he understood how important he was, and yeah, Duncan Keith maybe 38, but as going full circle back to the beginning of this, he can teach players. He can help them take that next step. Go back to what Matt sent, the Brian Kessler, Bieksa, the Sedins. Ask him about the effect of just having someone like Matt Sundin, even for half a season, meant to them and their careers.
Well, even you from the Flames, you even talked to Dylan Dubé about what Milan Lucic meant to his career, right? Like, there's something to be said for that. Even the time that Jaromir Jagr spent with Sam Bennett, I think it helped a little bit. But so there is that influence. Let's look at the Lightning. Hedman is 30, Johnson is 30, McDonough is 31, Stamkos is 30, Luke Shen 31. He didn't play much. David Sabardo is 30, Eric Chernak younger 23, Curtis McElhinney, the backup goaltender, 37, Alice Killorn's 31, Pat Maroon 32, Ryan McDonough. Yeah, they have a bunch of 30-year-olds on that team.
Yeah, so now they weren't doing it kind of the typical way where you have 2 or 3 that are like mid-30s or later 30s, and then a bunch of younger guys, and but they still had overall, if you look at the median age, an older team, right?
Yeah. We'll get to Chicago here in a second, but now, so Tyler, you had Edmonton, and I did ask what happens if they got Duncan Keith, what you do. So now what do you do for the protection? Obviously, you're protecting Keith.
Yeah, and Tyson Barrie, I'm going to assume they're not going to re-sign, so he comes off the list. I was of the thinking that they would try and make a deal with him, but I don't see that happening now.
So do I ask if Tyson Barrie wears one of this jersey behind this jersey?
You know what? I think Tyson Barrie's headed for some U.S. market again. He's tried it in the Canadian market now a couple of times. I don't think his performance last year was trash with the Oilers. I thought he actually looked pretty good. His time in Toronto was a disaster. But I think he would prefer something with less noise. So I don't see him going to Calgary or Vancouver.
I could see Seattle.
Yeah.
I could see Seattle looking at and seeing trying to make a deal with him. There's a good chance they're going very strong defensively. He may not be the strongest defenseman out there, but you still want to be able to have someone who can move the puck. I think I could see them trying to make a deal with him there.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago. Now, what do they? Okay, so there's two. The first question is expansion. Let's get to the expansion part. I mean, Chris had Keith Dahan and Connor Murphy. I'm assuming they're still going to go that same route. They'll just add another defenseman into that, or they make the shot at Seth Jones. Do they have a shot at Seth Jones or Seth Jones here?
Well, I saw some of the asking prices, and I don't think that's something they should be doing.
No. If you're asking, if you're another prop, Tyler.
Yes.
If you're calling me and you're using the name Kirby Doc, you're going to hang this up. I'm not interested. I'm not interested.
Well, when I heard Kirby Doc and Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, I'm not interested at all. At all.
No.
Yeah.
I just think it's no.
I don't know enough about Chicago's defensive depth in their system. I mean, maybe they have somebody in mind that they think they can step in.
I think I look at what they got. They got DeHaan, Connor Murphy, Nikita Zadorov, now Caleb Jones and Riley Stillman and Anton Lindholm, who have played, who would be they can expose. I look at that and I actually wonder if they go young and they'll go Caleb Jones, Riley Stillman, and maybe throw in a Connor Murphy just because he's a right shot and he's still only 28. It's one of those things where I look at that and you look at where that team is. DeBrincat's 23, Strom's 24. They've got Dat now who's 24, Brandon Hagel's 22, Bjorkstrom's 23, and then you look at their the players that aren't eligible for the draft. Kubelik's 25, Doc's 20, Alex Nylander's 23. They've got some young players, and I think they need to start building around that. They'll load down Boakfist at 20, 20 years of age. They need to start building that around that, and I think focusing on that would be very smart of them.
I mean, we got to ask the question: is Chicago rebuilding, or is this a retool on the fly, or do they even know where they're at with that?
Can I give you my theory?
Yeah,
this is it's a bit conspiratorial. I think Chicago is trying to distract from what the real story needs to be in Chicago, and they're doing as much as they can to make sure that. I think that there's a bit. There is a bit of that.
I don't think they're. I don't think that they're going to be sorry about having some other discussion around their team in the press right now.
Yeah. They picked 12th in the first round, so they pick ahead of the Calgary Flames. So they could get a defenseman there. They also have Ian Mitchell's their top prospect right now, who is a defenseman. So they seem to be okay at defense. That giving up Duncan Keith at this point may not have been that as big of a deal for them. So and you're right. I could see them go younger there now that you look at it. But.
Well, they got to go younger somewhere, right? Like if they're still going to say we're not doing the rebuild as long as Taves and Kane are here, then they got to find some other way to start turning over the roster.
And then there's the other question: is does Taves stick around? How much longer is that? What do you do with Patty Kane? There is a couple of interesting questions hockey wise in Toronto, I in Chicago, but I still think that I do think the allegations from 2010. I think I just want to call out those reporters like Rick Westhead and those that are still asking those questions. I still think that that's very important. So I want to make sure that that's still front of mind there as well.
I wonder about where ownership's at with Taves and Kane in particular. Like if loyalty is a big factor, then they're not going to commit to a rebuild, right? I think we saw this with the Canucks, even though the Sedins didn't lead the Canucks to a Stanley Cup. The loyalty factor was there, and there was not truly a rebuild with them still around. And I think we're going to see that in Chicago. I imagine Johnny Taves will be back.
They both have 2 more years left. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure Kane will be back. I wonder if he might be trade bait maybe at the deadline this year, though. Taves, there's too much going on there. I don't want to. It's really hard for me to speculate. Like if he's healthy, 100% there, and and that I do wonder if maybe he wants one more go at it. They're not young; they're 32 and 33 respectively, and all that. But I look at that and I wonder. Yeah, I do wonder whether they're. I think they may. If they could have kept Keith, and if that their blue line was a little better, and let alone they need a goaltender.
Yeah.
Is Kevin Lankinen the answer? Like, he's 26. He came out of nowhere and was like pretty fantastic for them this year. But is that sustainable? And I think you have to make that question. Like, if they still had, say, a steady goaltender in like a Corey Crawford, like where Corey Crawford was a few years ago, and they still had their blue line a little bit better, I think you could make the argument. But at this point, I look at that. Yeah, you've got Taves and Kane, but the rest of it is so young that I think you have to embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Taves saying, you know what, I'll pull the Sedins and I'll stay there for my career. But I could also see Taves saying, I want another shot somewhere, in the right situation. And maybe a team like the Rangers could use a little bit if they're going all in. If they go in on the Eichel thing. I mean,
wonder if Winnipeg would take a run at bringing him home.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't think that's something that is on the immediate future right now. I think that's maybe. I think for Taves, I think that's a 2022 offseason decision to make. I think he's just focused. I think as he should be. He should just be focused on making sure that he's healthy, and if he wants to play, he goes and plays and see how things are. Maybe at the deadline, you might revisit that, depending on how Chicago's doing and what moves they make this offseason. I think that's why there's the rumors that they're going after Seth Jones, because I think they feel like if they have Kevin Lankinen and they go after say a veteran goaltender on the out in UFA and they get a Seth Jones, I think they feel like they can make a one more run. But you have to they have to get Seth Jones without destroying whatever youth movement they have going here, and then they have to figure out how to fill out that blue line, because there's nothing wrong with like a Connor Murphy or a Calvin DeHaan, but you also have Nikita Zadorov, but you just need to make sure that that's good enough, and I don't know if it is.
Yeah. The other thing with Taves too that I do think is a motivational factor is the Olympics. I do think that with, like, you look at Taves and a guy like Drew Doughty, I think that's going to motivate him this year to have an opportunity to play one more of those. So that's another thing as well.
Maybe I think it's a long shot with Taves. Just he'd have to really play his way back onto the roster there. I think there's so much depth at center with Team Canada. I think that you have to find a way to he'd have to really, really, really play his way back on.
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably have to be a couple injuries, but I do think that that's a motivation for him.
I think if he comes back and he looks close to his old form almost right away, then he's on the Olympic team for me. But like Sean says, we don't know where he's at.
Yeah. All right, let's move on, and let's go to. Do we want to go to Ottawa, Minnesota?
I think we should probably talk about the Wild here.
Yeah, let's talk about let's stay within the division here with the Minnesota Wild. Bill Guerin, I think, shocked the NHL world buying out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. This buyout, actually, this contract started Yuri Hudler, shoeless Yuri winner, Lady Big winner Yuri Hudler, was still a Calgary Flame. And I think it's now it's a 5-year buyout at this particular point in time. I think with Zach Parise, I think that it looks more and more he was being a healthy scratch. So I don't know if to me that was as big of a surprise. But Ryan Suter, I think, is the big shakeup. I think Zach Parise, I think we're probably seeing the end of his career. It's close to retirement. But Ryan Suter was a guy that played a lot of minutes. He still played a lot against Vegas in the playoffs. He's a guy that I still think can help a lot of teams. And I don't think he's coming north. I totally agree with you. But I do think some teams are going to be taking a very long look at him in this offseason.
I think for Minnesota, they've looked at it like we're not making any progress in the playoffs, and you've got these two guys making huge money. They're getting older, and they're pulling the plug. And it's a bold move. It's a very uncomfortable move to make. I mean, I heard Bill Guerin's comments yesterday on the sports shows, and he kept saying it. We've got to make tough decisions when you're sitting in this chair. You just hope that dead cap space doesn't come back to haunt them. But at the very least, now they free up 2 roster spots and they kind of move forward with something different. What they were trying, they kept kicking at the can for a number of years and they weren't able to get past the first or second round of the playoffs. So that's a gutsy move to make, and it's also a move that ownership signed those guys, and they're the same owners there now, and they're paying these guys to go away. So the Bill Guerin and others in the front office had to probably do quite a lot of managing upward and convincing ownership to sign off on this buyout. But I guess they're of the belief as well that they need to make a big change, and those are 2 guys that need to go essentially.
I wonder if it's a bit of what we've talked about with the Calgary Flames. In terms of just sort of that dressing room is stale, that roster is stale, and Guerin saying, you know what, we need these guys out. You're not going to get the value. I don't know if a trade for Ryan Suter would have gotten exactly what you were hoping to get out of there. So you just I'll buy out.
I'm assuming they probably tried to make a trade and couldn't.
Yeah, and I think you look at this draft this year, there is a chance you can get a pretty high-level defenseman in your top 2 rounds that can not replace Suter right away, but you can develop into time. And it seems to me, and sorry if I interrupted you, but what I'm noticing in Minnesota, and maybe this will be something we have to bring Isha and the Soda Pod on. Shout out to them. Yeah. But what I'm noticing in Minnesota is there is a identity change sort of going on. You've got now this Kaprizov there. You've sort of are starting to develop a bit. This team used to be this really boring team, not a lot of identity. Now you got Kaprizov. You've got a guy like Matt Dumba who has been outspoken politically.
There's Joel Eriksson there, who they just re-signed as well.
Yeah, there's a bit of an identity change going on in Minnesota. I think it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I think this was more just like a cut, bait, and run situation with Bill Guerin. I think there probably could have been another option out there, but I think he just wanted a big, bold shakeup, as well as a more of a clean slate here. They had already moved the captaincy over to Jared Spurgeon. They've got Jonas Brodin locked up long term. Matt Dumba is a very solid defenseman. They've got Kalen Addison coming up, and I think he's probably NHL ready, if not close to. And that they're probably going to give him a good shot. They like some of the some of the up and coming players that they've got up front, namely Nico Sturm, as well as Jordan Greenway. Had they been forced to do an 8 skater 4-and-4 protection list, they would have lost one of Jordan Greenway or Nico Sturm, likely Jordan Greenway. And I think that that was something they were trying to avoid. And I think that would have been, I think that was something they were trying to avoid. And I think that would have been, 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 I think that would I think the dead cap space, like it's almost $15 million between the two. They're over $15 million between the two of them for a couple seasons. They've got a decent. They get a decent amount of relief this year, but for 22-23 and then the 2 seasons after, it's over $10 million, close to 15. Now that I look at it, in dead cap space, and that's really, really going to hurt them. They have to hope that their young players that they've got coming up, the Marco Rossi's, the Adam Beckmans, the Kalen Addisons, the Damon Hunts, the Ryan O'Rourke's, can step up as quickly as possible and start adding to that roster. Otherwise, they're really going to have a hard time filling it out with NHL caliber players.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative, though, is that you don't do the buyout, you keep those guys on your roster, and they tie up a couple of spots, and they don't make any progress as a team. So here they are. They're going to hope that this works. It's another lesson in short-sightedness and long-term deals. Yes, that came before the current CBA, but it's another example here. And in their case, 2 deals of the same total dollar value and term that they're now doing the about face with.
I assume they've got a plan too, because the other option was that because they were so long-term and they were part of that back diving contract pattern when they were signed, that there would be cap recapture at near the end there if they ended up retiring.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so certainly. I think in Minnesota, they're in a very interesting spot, and I partially would be also curious if they think that they missed an opportunity taking out Vegas in the first round. Vegas had them 3-1. They almost came back, but well, I guess we'll see. Who's interested in Ryan Suter?
If I'm Vegas or Colorado, I look at him. I think Vegas desperately needs to find to look at improving that blue line, and you can get someone with a big name at probably a little cheaper than you would normally get them.
Yep.
And as well as Colorado, both of them fell foul to a very hard forechecking game that Ryan Suter, I'm sure, knows how to break, and we talked about how important veteran leadership can be and veteran experience can be. I think those two are really good landing spots for him. He's never won a cup. I don't think he's ever been to a cup final either.
Nope.
And I think those two teams are close enough that I think he'd be definitely looking at that.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only one maybe I could possibly see is just, and I only say this because of location, maybe Winnipeg, but I don't see a North team. Yeah, I'm with Elliot.
I don't think they're close enough either. I think they're. I think if there was a Canadian team that he could fit in, and they were close enough to the Cup, I think maybe he'd look at it. But the only team I think would have had that I think the cap space to make it work, because he's going to sign a cheaper deal than he would normally would, but it's still not going to be a one. I doubt. I'll be very surprised if he signs for less than $3 million per.
Yeah,
and I think you look at the only other team that I think up above the board were close enough, and he feels that could be there would have been Edmonton, and they already made their big move for a veteran defenseman in Duncan Keith.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that. So the other move was Ottawa, not an on-ice move. Pierre Maguire is moving from between the glass to upstairs. I could prop this in graph.
You've had enough props for one day, Kevin. Just slow down on the props here.
Okay, he's going between anyway. Between the glass upstairs. He's going to take the elevator. He's going to go upstairs, and he is the vice president of hockey operations. Can I start on this one?
Yes.
I think Pierre McGuire's time as a broadcaster is up. I think Pierre McGuire probably knew that. I think from what I heard, he was on Donnie and Dolly today, that they were in conversation with this for most of this year, negotiating for this, and it finally worked out that happened. But at the same time, I know this is another one of these ones that Twitter was like, this is a stupid move. Pierre McGuire knows more about hockey, or forgot more about hockey, than a lot of us on Twitter will remember. Pierre McGuire is a guy, like, and you don't have to like this guy personally. Like, I totally get, like, he's cringeworthy on a microphone. I totally get it. But he goes to hockey games outside of the fact that he's broadcasting hockey games. He knows players. He can find players. He's probably, if we had him on here, he'd probably be like Peter Labardius and just talk about players for hours on end. He has a working knowledge. He has 2 Stanley Cups. By the way, I know that they were in the 90s, but they still count. I think that I think bringing Pierre McGuire in for the role that he is in, which is not a front face role. He's not being a general manager. He is sort of, the role that he's being brought in, I think, is a very valuable role, and I think it will work in Ottawa. If he became the general manager, then I would have an issue with it. But the role he's been put in, I think, is a pretty well-suited role for him.
Yeah, I believe that the actual role is VP of Player Development.
Yes.
Sorry.
And I think that's a great role for him. I think, as you said, he goes to hockey, he sees hockey, he lives and breathes hockey. Like, that's what you want in a player development person. I think there are some questions about whether or not he's in touch with where the game is going. I think that's valid. But I think in terms of if there was a role for him, this people were trying to bring up how he doesn't necessarily buy into analytics, but that's not a bad thing. You need you need people out there who think differently than everyone. You can't just have a front office full of analytic thinkers. You need to have people who are willing to go and understand that, as Pierre McGuire puts it, boots on the ground. Scouting is good, and it is, especially when it comes to player development, because player development is all about skill development. Stats don't show skill. They show results. They don't show why a goal was scored. They don't show how a goal was scored. You have to see it. You have to see the play develop and why it was happened, why certain things happen. Stats don't show that. So in a player development role, I think that's a good spot for him. Whether or not it works out, it remains to be seen. But I'm open-minded to see how it goes. Like, Ottawa, for the lack of a good owner, they're in a good spot. Yeah, they've got Tim Stützle, they've got Drake Batherson, they've got Brady Tkachuk, they've got Thomas Chabot, Jacob Bernard-Docker, and why am I drawing a blank on Jake Sanderson? There we go. I was going Jeff and then Derek, and I'm like, no, that's all. Those are both wrong. I'm pulling a Devin here, but they're in a good spot, and I think if you can find a way to help, if someone like a Pierre McGuire can step in and help these players develop as we talked about, learning how to win. Learning how to play in the playoffs, learning how to battle through the physicality and the clutching, grabbing, and hooking that currently is allowed in the NHL, they're better for it. So I think I'm open-minded to see where that is at. I don't think this hire was as shit on worthy as many on social media made it out to be.
Yeah, I mean, people can say that they are separating Pierre McGuire, the broadcasting shtick, from his hockey credentials, but honestly, are people really doing that? No, they're blending the two, and they don't like McGuire's style, therefore they don't like McGuire. But the fact is, he's a guy that's very well connected in the game. The Senators front office has really lacked the experience and communication skills that they had with Brian Murray. Since his passing, that there's been a void there. Pierre Dorion, I mean, I don't know how he's received amongst the Ottawa fan base. Probably not that great, but I mean, as Sean has said, the Senators are not in that bad a spot. And really, is Pierre Dorion in control there, or is it Eugene Melnyk, right? But you add another guy with a lot of knowledge, communication skills, and in particular a strong scouting background, a boots on the ground scouting background, as McGuire has talked about. I don't see how this is a bad thing for the Senators. The thing though is he the GM in waiting? It kind of has the feel to me like, you know, if they're looking to throw somebody under the bus when it's not going well next season, that it could be Pierre Dorion out and Pierre McGuire in, but we'll see.
I think it's really, like, from my perspective, it's tough to fire Pierre Dorion at this point. You look at this draft record and you look where this team is at. They finished ahead of Vancouver. A lot of people may not remember that, but they did. The way that prospect is going, it right now it is. I can't see how you bring in Dorion, you replace a McGuire for Dorion. That would be a PR stupid move to me. But I think, you know, to bring this to a conversation we've had about the Canucks, this is a role that I think the Canucks could have used, possibly in the past with Benning, someone there with a bit more experience. We always thought of it as the Brendan Shanahan role. But maybe it was this. Maybe it was this type of role that Pierre McGuire has gone. What they've created in Ottawa.
Is that what his role is going to be? Is he really going to be front facing?
No.
Or is he actually? Yeah, exactly. So that I don't.
But
I'm not sure I follow where you're going with this.
I think more maybe instead of. I mean, yes, there's two problems with Benning here. The first problem is obviously in front of the camera. We've talked about it. Take Toastmasters. But the other side of it is having someone with a bit more experience behind him, helping him make decisions, and that's where I think Pierre McGuire can help, and maybe like that kind of person in a role helping Benning not bossing him around, but sort of in a supportive role in some way, to adding that to the team, maybe.
I still don't follow, Kev, because Pierre McGuire has been out of the management game for decades,
but still well connected.
Still well connected, but it's still a different game, I think. And his role is player development VP.
Well, that's the title. I mean, I have a athletic article up here by Ian Mendez out of Ottawa, and then McGuire apparently confirmed that his role will be multifaceted and communications is part of the responsibilities. So. Now, as far as the Canucks and you needing something like that, well, I think we've seen a number of examples where we've seen Travis Green brought out either by himself to answer questions for the team or brought out with Jim Benning to soften that kind of gap that exists there.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what we're going to see from Pierre McGuire here. And I don't know because player development, the Canucks have Ryan Johnson and Chris Higgins running things right now, and I think that's a good team to have. Since they've taken over, I think we've started to see some strides in that aspect. I think the biggest thing right now for the Canucks is to find someone to make sure that Jim doesn't put a foot in his mouth, and. Yeah, maybe someone like a Pierre McGuire in that role would be good, but I just, maybe I'm taking too much stock in the actual title of his role, and all that. But when someone says that the role's gonna be multifaceted, every role's multifaceted.
Yeah. Well, to me, what that means is they haven't got it all figured out.
Yeah, and I think it's just you look at that, and I Doran's done a very good job with what he's had to work with, where he had to basically shed salary because Eugene didn't want to spend money. He got a decent amount of draft picks for it, and they're in a good spot. But I don't know. I'm still not exactly sure where Pierre would have fit in the Canucks.
Not necessarily Pierre, but someone with a bit more experience, a bit more hockey connectivity that we know of.
And again, I don't.
Who would that be?
Maybe if we're going comparable, Ray Ferraro.
Well, no, I think they brought the Sedins in to try and provide that kind of buffer.
What does Ray Ferraro bring? Connecting why? Because he's been in the media and watched hockey. Like I love Ray Ferraro. I love the idea of him being brought in and doing that, but I don't see that as experience, because I think there's experience of running a NHL team and running behind and doing everything behind the scenes, and then there's everything with being in front of the camera. I think that's two separate things that really I don't necessarily see the connection there.
Well, and at least Pierre's done this type of thing in the past. That's
Yeah.
the thing. I mean, he was in coaching and management in the past, right? And so with Ray, and let's be clear with Ray, he signed on with ESPN and cut back on his radio responsibilities with TSN to achieve better work-life balance. Cammy's a scout with the Seattle Kraken. They've got a family that's not that young anymore, but they still got a family. I don't see any scenario where he goes into some kind of manager.
Yeah, no, I'm more Galaxy brain. I'm not saying they should have brought in yet, but I feel like I do wonder it was just something that McGuire said today, that it may be a role. This may be whatever he's doing, and I know it's undetermined, but it sounds like to me it's a role that, from his perspective, is something that teams will be thinking of in the future. So it sounds a little bit of a new role, but we've always wondered a little bit in terms of having more experience behind Benning. That's all. But I see where you're coming from.
What's more experience though? And like when you bring up Ray Ferraro and you've got Pierre McGuire, who has not. Yeah, he did it in the 90s. We're in 2021 now. Yeah. The game has completely changed. We've gone through 2 lockouts and multiple rule changes. We no longer live in the world of the trap hockey and the dead puck era. Like, there's so much like.
To be fair on that, I mean, it's not like Pierre just sort of disappeared into the ether for the last whatever number of years. It is 1997 is when he got into broadcasting. My math is the shit. So, but he's been analyzing. He's been at ice level. I want to at least say that he's had some opportunity to evolve with the game. He's not even totally anti-analytics, but he's one of these guys, like me, frankly, that sees it as a tool, not the be-all, end-all. But yes, it has been a long time since Pierre has sort of had his hands on the controls in an NHL organization, and we'll see if it works. For me, what I think it's really about is that Eugene Melnyk wanted another guy that he can put around the table, part of the brain trust, and when Eugene has his crazy ideas, it's another experienced hockey person there to bounce them off of. Yep. Maybe he didn't feel it was enough just having Pierre Dorion there. And I think with the Canucks, we could probably say the same thing, that the Aquilinis felt like they need more than just Jim Benning and Francesco at the table, and having Sedins there. It means more perspectives and hopefully for everybody better decision making.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Canucks, the Abbotsford Canucks have been revealed today. The new nickname for the Abbotsford AHL franchise, the new Vancouver Canucks franchise. We did a poll in terms of grade of what it looked like. I think that I feel like there's a bunch of people that were a bit disappointed by the nickname.
Are we bringing up the poll?
Okay.
Have you mentioned the poll? We got to see the poll. Come on, guys. Do I need to reach over there and start playing with the controls, or what?
I'm assuming Sean is reading my mind, so we're speaking telekinetically. Yeah. But
I don't want to do the Ron McLean and start appearing in Sean's screen here.
Wait till we do that on Sunday.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in Devin's car. I'm in Devin's one.
Here we go.
But it's the debut look is 43% said B, and I think that's fair. I like the uniform. I actually like the uniform look. I think everyone wanted probably a different sort of Abbotsford nickname, but I think ultimately.
I have an opinion on that. Sean and I were talking about this off air earlier.
I mean, I think there were some people that were hoping a non-Canuck nickname,
Sure.
but I don't know. I think this suits I think that this suits what the brand that they want to be in, and I don't have a problem with what they did. I think that they did exactly what they needed to. Branded this team as the Canucks farm team. That is exactly what they needed to do. That is why it did not work before, is because the Abbotsford Heat were the Calgary Flames farm team. They did exactly what they needed to. We're the Vancouver Canucks farm team. They will go in Abbotsford and support it.
Yeah, and I think that was maybe some of the concern, is that if they didn't put the name Canucks on the team, that they might not be capitalizing on the fan expendable or disposable income for minor league hockey. If it has the name Canucks on it, maybe that moves the needle towards people casually going out to Abbotsford and watching a game and seeing the future Vancouver Canucks. The other thing is, too, in a short period of time, to make the branding and all of it come together, it's easier that way. And this is not the only example where the AHL team shares the name of the NHL team. And again, we were having dinner there earlier. Sean and I kind of named off a few. There's the Texas Stars. There was the Albany Devils, which I think is going to become the Utica Devils, maybe, or Comets, I'm not sure, but I thought they registered Utica Devils as a trademark. We've seen a number of others as well. There's the Iowa Wild, for example. To help me out here, we had some other ones.
The Belleville Senators.
Belleville Senators, that's right. Yeah.
Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins.
Yes. Yeah. That's fairly common to have the minor league team take the same name.
And I think the logo and the sweaters are work in progress. I think we will see new ones in a year or two, just to fine tune it. I do think if I do have a criticism of it, it just feels like they slapped Johnny Canuck on the sweater. They didn't actually think about coming up with a different logo. We just saw last night the Vancouver Giants release a new sweater and logo, and that looks fantastic. And then you compare it to this, and I like both. I like the Giants one better, but I feel like it does feel like you won't. I feel like it did feel like they just sort of slapped on Canucks and then Johnny Canuck, and then just went with that. I still think it looks good. I still think the A on the upside down V, the A on the side of on the arms on the sweater, I think is really good. But again, if there's any criticism I have of it, it does feel a little bit just slap and go. But I don't think that it's a horrible look. I don't think it's a horrible idea to go with the Abbotsford Canucks. I was hoping they'd go with something more Abbotsford centric, like aviators or arrows or something like that. I thought that would have been cool, but I completely understand why they want to keep the branding the same, especially when you're in the same market.
Yeah. One of the ones I was drawing a blank on earlier was Providence Bruins.
Right.
And actually, kind of a fun one, but it's along the same lines. The Henderson Silver Knights, still keeping the Knights theme there with the Vegas Gold Knights.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. The other one that happened today, and I do think that we need to bring this up, is the Portland Winterhawks rebranded today as well. It is a new logo. I was sort of under the impression for some reason they were changing the nickname, but they rebranded. And I'll see if I can pull this up. But I This was absolutely fantastic to me. This was probably, to me, if I had to pick between the three changes, what the Portland Winterhawks did today was in my opinion the best. It's a very strong look, and I think
it's a very interesting and intricate logo too.
Yeah, and it was an innovative way to keep a nickname and not have it be offensive. As you pull up the logo here.
Are you pulling up the logo or am I?
I heard you say it. Sorry.
Again, do I have to come over and take control of this thing or what? Man.
Yes, we're fired.
And by the way, why is the Hockey Podcast Twitter account 5 minutes ago sending out a preview of our show tonight when we're an hour and a half into it?
No, it was actually, that was done about an hour ago, by the way.
Hey, well, I've seen it 5 minutes, so either.
Yeah, I only got it too.
What the heck?
We'll call the glitch.
Maybe I need to go back. It's not working like this.
I feel like we're going to get fired by Tyler here in a minute here.
Well, you guys are really on thin ice here right now. The technical with it here.
Here we go. I won't play.
Scroll.
It's a little lower, Kev. Keep scrolling. No, that's not it.
What are we looking at?
Is this not it?
Well, I mean, it's looking at the logo.
Okay. Boy, oh boy.
Okay. Anyway, we're having a day here.
D at best.
Sorry about that. Okay, I will here.
I got it, Kev. I got it.
I'm fired today. Sorry, my brain.
Take your hands off the controls, okay? There.
That's what we're looking for. Okay.
Beautiful
anyway.
logo.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I love it. I love the mountain in there. Like it's a homage to Mount Hood for people who don't know the geography down there. Mount Hood is I believe it is volcanic. A mountain just about 45 minutes east of Portland. And you've got the Columbia River Gorge is a big part of that area. So, and a big part of the recreation in that area. So seeing them pay homage to that, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really good logo. And as I said, I thought I was under the impression they were changing their nickname, but they kept it. And I think kept it.
What's wrong with Winterhawks?
It was branded under the Chicago Blackhawks branding, and that I think took offense. And I think the way that it now looks, it does not have indigenous connotations to it.
No.
Yeah. And also, Sergeant Pickles points out they have a logo breakdown photo. There is a hidden WH in the mountain.
Ooh, good eye there, Sarge.
Nice.
Nice.
Good job.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Dylan asks, I love the logo. Can Abbotsford borrow the branding?
No, I'm afraid that's not going
to. Yeah.
We all know that it doesn't really matter what the Abbotsford hockey team was going to be called. There were people who liked it, people who hated it, people who were going to act like it was the end of the world. But in a year or two, it's gonna be water under the bridge. We're gonna be watching the future Canucks play in Abbotsford, and it's not gonna be a big deal.
As Jason Bruff tweeted out, you can name them the Leafs. Just develop NHL hockey players. Yeah. So just a couple other quick things significant things, but still quick. Peke Rene announced his retirement after a number of years. Where is he? First of all, is he a Hall of Famer?
I'm going to say no, probably just because not enough of an international record to really point to. But a really solid NHL career. I mean, he was one of the top goalies for a long period of time when he was in his heyday with Nashville. They were almost always a playoff team with him. It was with him that they finally got past that hump of winning around and getting further into the playoffs. Got them to a Stanley Cup final in 2017. Unfortunately, not that great in that Stanley Cup final. But yeah, pretty solid NHL career, and happy trails to him.
Yeah, if you look at, I'm going to bring up a friend of the show here, Bryce Chevalier. He tweeted out a breakdown of Vezina votes for all time in terms of like percentage. And look how high Pekka Rinne is. Like, he's fifth. He's ahead of the likes of Henrik Lundqvist, Grant Fuhr, Sergei Bobrovsky, Roberto Luongo, Tim Thomas, Tuukka Rask, goaltenders that he played against. And yeah, he's one of those guys who had he won a cup, would be a fully automatic Hall of Famer, I think. But I think it's going to be one of those ones where I think eventually he'll get in. That we'll call it the Kevin Lowe the Kevin Lowe rule on this one. And but I don't think people realize how good of a career Pekka Rinne really had.
Matt Stajan said he was the second best Finnish goaltender of all time, behind Kaprizov.
That's a debate. I feel like we have to save that debate for later on in like August, where we're needing some content, because I think that'd be a fun one to have.
Sorry, did you say Finnish goalies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Tuukka Rask is going to have to go on that discussion.
That's the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sergeant Pickles already disagrees. He says the greatest Finnish goaltender of all time. So we'll debate it.
Yeah.
For sure. The other one
Sergeant has no problem picking a table, eh? Yeah. Some people on this show could learn a thing or two about that.
Yeah, Chris. Also Kevin Miller retired today, and the Bruins signed Brandon Carlo. That was the other two things. Any quick thoughts on that?
Not particularly. I mean, Carlo's been a pretty big part of what the Bruins are doing here for the last number of years. So, good on Brandon to get a new deal.
Yeah, $4.1 million, a cap hit for 6 years. That's a great deal for Brandon Carlo. I think the last couple of years of that deal maybe a struggle for him, just based off of his size and how players of his ilk usually age. But if he can learn how to be very good positionally, that'll mitigate a lot of it. And they desperately needed to bring him back. I think he's a very, for being in a big market, he's a very underrated defenseman.
Should be noted he has a modified no trade clause that kicks in starting in the third year of his deal.
Also, I missed this. Teddy Bluger signed 2.2 for 2 years in Pittsburgh. Good signing, I think, for Pittsburgh as well.
To quote Steve Dangle from Riga, Latvia, Teddy Bluger.
Yeah.
That's an interesting deal. I think it might be a bit of an overpayment for someone like Teddy Bluger, but I feel like he's like perfect for a Brian Burke-led team.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's got a bit of that truculence word to him there. And we forget that it's Ron Hextall that is the GM of the Penguins,
That's
not
still
Brian.
Hard to get my head around. Like, it really is.
It's still a Brian Burke-led team. He's the president.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like when Ken Dryden was managing the Maple Leafs. I mean, that's still just like
Yeah. The other, I guess, just quickly here, this will be our last show before the expansion lists are revealed. Is there anything with the Flames or Canucks, or the Canucks, that you're hoping happens within the next few days?
I really hope the Canucks find a way to pick up a forward that they can use that one of the sort of the two debatable protection spots to help bolster that, or a defenseman. They've got, if they can find a way to pick up someone who work with a team who has an expendable player who needs protection, that'd be fantastic.
I think both the fans and the front office are frankly hoping that somebody with a fairly hefty cap hit relative to their performance gets taken by Seattle. Just that's one problem they don't have to deal with.
It does. It does sound like Seattle is looking at Holtby, and I think that'd be fantastic. I think that would open things up. I think the Canucks should be able to get a decent backup for about $2 million.
So we're saying Mikey DiPietro's not ready yet.
I think you bring that is the problem. I would rather bring in a veteran, a goalie, give DiPietro another a full season. Like, remember,
Yes.
He didn't really play last year.
No.
Like, I really want to see them give him games. He needs to play. So I don't want him to be a backup, a full blown backup in the NHL this upcoming season. I want him to play.
And this is one of the things about Abbotsford being the farm team now, is that if they want to maybe shuffle him back and forth, they could do that with a little more convenience factor.
Yeah, that is true. I think that's why I think they if Holtby does get taken, I think you could see. I think you could see the Canucks look at a cheaper backup option with the intent of, whenever they can, bringing up DiPietro for starts.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess I'll just quickly touch on the Flames here. I think the big question is what they do with Giordano if they decide that they're going to leave him unprotected.
Is that even a debate? I think that he is going to be left unprotected.
It's more a debate on whether or not they try and work a deal with Seattle to keep him. I think
there's a 20% of me that wonders if they go 4-4 to try to protect him. I hope not.
That is like, I think we went over this. Like,
I'm not saying I would do it.
The only way that works is if they're able to move if they're able to move one of Gaudreau Monahan to and only get back players that are exempt from the draft. That's the only way you work at it, because otherwise you've got Gaudreau, Monahan, Lindholm, Mangiapane, and Tkachuk. Like, that's 5.
Yeah, I
know. You have to expose one of those. Like, you have to make a trade beforehand to make that 4-4 work. So if that's what you're wanting them to do, that'd be fantastic. That's big news. That's a lot of fun to talk about. I would love to see that happen between now and Sunday, so we can have that to talk about while we're all together.
I'm not saying I want that to happen. I don't. I have my list. To me, that was an easy list, but there's a part of me that wonders. Yeah. That when you bring in a Daryl Sutter and the way Daryl Sutter used them, I'm just wondering.
Who do you expose? Okay,
yeah,
okay. No, I want an answer, Kevin. If they go that way, who do they expose? Pick a table.
He wasn't prepared for this.
Johnny.
Yeah. And that'd be an easy pick for Seattle.
Yeah.
No, I know it would be, but I look at it. Yeah, like I can't. I would protect Mangiapane. Like to me, you got to protect Mangiapane. You got to protect Tkachuk, and
I mean, this comes back to what we talked about on Thursday about protecting the assets. I mean, you leave Gaudreau exposed. I don't know what his contract status is.
He's got one more year left in the season.
Well, he's also if the Flames don't trade Gaudreau by the 28th, he's got a 5-team trade list that he can submit. So
yeah, Gaudreau's got one more year left at 6.75, and yeah, as Kevin is correct on that, modified no trade clause. It's a 5-team list that he can be traded to, and literally he can tailor that to this team can't afford me, this team can't afford me, this team doesn't want me. He can pull Ryan Kessler.
Yeah. And you know, Brad Treliving's not been afraid to make some bold moves. So for him to leave him exposed in the Seattle expansion draft wouldn't be sort of, that outlandish based on his track record.
I would leave Gio unprotected. That's my table that I am picking. But there's.
You want to write that down, Sean?
No, I don't. I've got it down. He submitted his list already.
It's documented. It's there. Yes.
Yeah. So we will gather on Sunday.
Yes.
At Sean's house, 12 o'clock Mountain, 11 o'clock Pacific. Devin will be there. Chris will be there. I will be there. Yeah. All around the table. We will be at a table.
Yes. Just before you go, we will be at this table where you can see Sean behind his laptop there. Other way.
Ron McLean. You pulled the Ron McLean. You actually did it.
By the way, just to be clear, I have not been shaking the table the whole time. That's been Sean. I've kept my paws off the table mostly.
Yeah. But so we'll gather. We'll have the expansion list. We are going to pick our teams and whatever other news is going on. There may be lots because I could see some trades happening.
Oh, there's probably going to be a ton of activity between now and then.
Yeah, and there's going to be a golf games to talk about as well.
Oh, yes, the Hockey Podcast Golf Summit is coming on Saturday. Three of us.
We've got a round tomorrow where it's Tyler, Devin, and I. We're going out to Brewster's Kananaskis course. We're going to out in the mountains. So it's going to be really nice. It's supposed to be really hot too. So, but that'll be good. And then on Saturday, we're heading out to Tooth of the Dog Pound, which is a nice sort of foothills course. So it's a little more wide open. Chris will be joining us. So
I probably will join you too.
You've got to be there.
Kevin will be there.
Yes.
So we're gonna have a good time, and it's going to be a gong show.
Yeah. The Hockey Podcast, personal pride / bragging rights will be under great discussion.
if I can be within 20 strokes of Devin, I'll be happy.
Yeah, same here.
All right, how do we follow?
As long as I finish ahead of Chris, frankly, this will be a success. Sorry, Chris.
Chris will fit it. Yeah. Anyway, how do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canucks 03 on Twitter,
and I'm on Twitter at Tnoble TNOBLE.
The aforementioned Chris is Schneid's SCHNEIDZ. Devin is GordHowe09. I am KEVOLE. Podcast_hockey. Facebook.com The Hockey Podcast. YouTube.com The Hockey Podcast. Flick follow and subscribe. Hit the like button as well. Tell your friends about us. And we're back on Sunday where we tell many more stories. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.